Okay, good evening, Rosa, and all of those of you at home. Thank you for tuning in to the Athletic Open House. I understand the weather has put a dent in the attendance, so we're going to go through our presentation tonight, and the goal is to provide you with information regarding the athletic program. Obviously, have a modified focus, but then also give you information on the athletic program overall as your sons and daughters progress through the athletic program. So some fun facts here to start off. We have 56 teams with 23 sports on 3 seasons. Now, I mentioned that to kick off the meeting tonight because it's a robust athletic profile and program that we have for a school of our size and in our region. We have great participation among our 7th through 12th graders with 65%, and 50% of them play multiple sports. A trend, though, that's happening not only at Rhinebeck, but in the region and other schools, and athletic directors talk about it, is the number of multi-sport athletes have been declining over the years due to specialization, and we hope that trend will reverse itself and not continue. But we still have a high percentage of students who play multiple sports, not only 2, but then we also have student athletes that play 3 sports. Over 800 athletes across the 3 seasons. So that also means, though, that if you're an athlete and you played 3 sports, you're counted 3 times. So we do have good participation numbers for our athletic program. Now, this has been a doozy of a year for everybody on all fronts. We were able to get actually 4 seasons in because New York State modified them, which was fall, winter, fall 2, and then spring. Annually, we have athletes capture superlative awards beyond our area, and these awards are not at the modified level, but at the varsity level only. Our teams compete across Section 1. New York State's broken up into 11 different sections. We just happen to have the number 1 associated with us. There's no rhyme or reason to it, as the state broke it up, but we are Section 1. So when you hear me refer to that, or your friends or neighbors, it's talking about our geographic region, and Section 1 is comprised of Westchester, Putnam, Dutchess, and Rockland counties. We have several standout athletes, but in particular, we have a couple that are going to play at the next level, including Julia DeLitto will be playing girls lacrosse at Lehigh. Alexa Gadez will be playing at SUNY Cortland volleyball. And Lucy Friedman was a prestigious winner of the Con Ed Scholar Athlete Award, which is a very prominent award for scholar athletes to win at their time in high school. She's the 58th Rhinebeck student athlete to win this award, so we're happy about that. And a couple of weeks ago, before our softball game, Diana King, class 2015, was inducted to our Rhinebeck Hall of Fame. We do have a Hall of Fame. Nomination form is on our website, and I put a committee together to review nominations for those worthy of induction to the Hall of Fame. We have our Twitter handles you see there, and this current year, 4 of our varsity teams won league titles. We are fortunate to have a full-time athletic trainer, which also, Joe Dranoff is his name. He helped design the concussion management plan, which is required by New York State. We partner with Family ID on the technology front for registrations of your sons and daughters for their season participation. We have an athletic director's honor roll that recognizes student athletes that maintain honor or high honor roll status over the course of a semester while participating in a sport. And our fitness center weight room, we do a great job of not only keeping it up to date and with the trends of fitness, but it's a state-of-the-art fitness center that rivals many Division III fitness centers, and our kids are really fortunate to have access to that. This presentation will be loaded to the website, so don't worry about taking notes or pictures. It will be on the website by the end of the week. Here are some important dates. This information will also be blasted out in my summer letter that'll be going out towards the end of this week and periodically over the next couple of weeks and months as we lead into the fall season. We have free physicals that are available with Dr. Militana, our Chief Medical Officer for the Rhinebeck schools. A parent must accompany the individual, and here are the times and dates that's available. So you see June 16th and June 23rd, the 16th from 2 to 4, and 12:30 to 2:30 for June 23rd. August 16th, this is important for especially the modified population. Online Family ID registration will open. Okay, so it's important to get ahead in the summertime before our September 13th kickoff of our modified season to make sure your sons and daughters are registered in Family ID, so they have the ability to try out for our teams when we begin on September 13th. 31st is a deadline. We put a deadline in there not to have a hard line, but it's to help our nurses be able to go through the information you provided and see if there's anything missing or if the physical needs to be updated, things of that nature. So we want to provide as much time as we can, so we like to build in a deadline for that. On September 1st, it's a half day. I meet with the modified students, the 7th and 8th graders. We'll meet in the dining hall where I explain to them the expectations and the information with regard to practices and things of that nature. And then on September 13th, tryouts begin. Now, if you're sitting here watching from home, that means you're interested in having your son or daughter be in athletics. It's very important now when you start to come upon the high school years to know the calendar and to know vacation planning. Our preseason, when you get to the varsity and junior varsity level, it begins in August every year. These dates are determined by New York State Public High School Athletic Association. I'm giving an alert there. So for 2022, varsity and JV tryouts for freshmen and older will be on August 22nd. So if you're an 8th grade parent, make sure you note this as you're planning vacation, because we do expect the student athletes to be back for those tryouts and to be fully cleared in Family ID by our nurses in 2022. Okay, you do receive email blasts and notifications. So this is a typical, I say typical because obviously some things need to change. We are very fortunate that the community is extremely supportive of athletics and of the capital project, which allowed us to build a middle school gymnasium, which is much needed not only for interscholastic athletics, but also for our physical education program and the opportunity to schedule different classes, not only in that building, but give some flexibility and freedom within this building to give more offerings to our student athletes and our regular students. This is a typical practice schedule and location. I'm excited to be able to update where we have volleyball and basketball. Now we'll be in the middle school gymnasium in here. Obviously, we don't have additional field space, so the soccers, they'll still continue, and the boys and girls lacrosse and modified softball will still continue to be at Bellows and Daniel Warren. But I wanted to provide you a snapshot of location and typical times that these take place. Now, I put in red down there, modified is Monday through Friday. We do not have practice or contests on school holidays or when school is closed. We have once or twice, though, participated in a modified cross-country meet that took place on a Saturday that a local school was willing to offer, and we made it optional. So there is no expectation for Saturday participation. Again, it happens only 4 times in my 13 years here. Athletes can only be on 1 team per season. That's very important. There are 3 athletic seasons per year. I'll talk more about availability on programs and things along those lines later in the presentation. Now, I put this in as a kind of as a PSA, right? 2% of graduating seasons nationwide receive athletic scholarships. It's important to know that public schools and interscholastic schools, they're not built, or their mantra or our model is not to build professional and collegiate athletes. Yes, it happens, and it's when it does happen, it's a nice byproduct of participation in the program. But our goal is to do education through athletics. And education doesn't necessarily mean becoming the best volleyball player in the state or being the best football player in the country. There are other elements of education that interscholastic athletics are designed to do, and we'll talk more about that. The help that I need from home is to help manage expectations. So what's very hard is you get caught up in the rush of trying to have your son or daughter maybe participate on varsity or JV or to earn that scholarship. And I just wanted to show you the percentages, not to be discouraging, but just to kind of pump the brakes and say, hey, let's be happy that our sons and daughters and our children are participating in athletics. It's healthy for their mind, healthy for their body. And we don't want to rush that, because there's also a social development piece to that where they're able to participate with their colleagues, their peers, and also represent their schools. And I've seen it plenty of times, not only here at Rhinebeck, but in other schools and even within my own family, where sometimes you get so caught up in what's the next step beyond high school that you really don't enjoy the process going through modified all the way through JV and varsity. And that time you don't get back. So I just wanted to emphasize that point. So along the education through athletics, okay? So it's teamwork, it's time management, which I'm seeing is the biggest change and biggest shift in today than was when you and I were playing sports. We didn't have as many opportunities. So it's a great thing that our students have more opportunity, not only inside school, but outside of school. But we need to do a good job of managing that, because we can't be in multiple places at one time. So we ask that we're committed to our program and our team when we're participating with them. So it's a time management, it's a sportsmanship, it's a leadership, self-advocacy, and the physical, mental, social health. And what I mean by self-advocacy is this is where we're trying to help our young adults have those difficult conversations and train them for their future interview, their future presentation at college for admissions. We want to encourage them and empower them at home to have these conversations with the coach. And I'll talk about things later in the program that we don't allow, and I don't want to come across hard, We don't allow parents to have conversations with coaches with, because we want to promote and have that self-advocacy of the sons and daughters to have with their coaches. As I spoke earlier about specialization versus multi-sport, I won't beat a dead horse. I will say this. If your son and daughter is interested in playing multiple sports, please encourage them to do so. If your son or daughter is interested in playing one sport, please discourage them not to do that, because research shows that it is detrimental to not only their physical development, but it also it hurts them socially, because they're not learning different roles within different paradigms. They're not learning different roles within different teams. They're not learning how to react to different situations or participating in a different environment. So obviously we want more students playing more sports, and the research supports that. So now eligibility. Your son and daughter, once they enter high school, they're allowed 4 years of sports. If your son or daughter is an 8th grader who is APP'd, means we've asked them to try out for a JV or varsity and they make it, they have 5 years. If they're a 7th grader, they have 6 years if we've asked them to go up to a JV or varsity level. Why is this important? It's important to think about this, because if you're sitting home or you're in the audience tonight and you're thinking, well, things aren't going our way, or maybe it might be a better setting for my son or daughter, we're going to put them in a different type of school, a private school perhaps, you need to be aware that there are potential eligibility consequences to that. So if you have an 8th grader and they're playing on the JV and the varsity, their clock has started, meaning they only get 5 years to play sports. If you go to a private school or another school and reclassify that student to repeat a grade, you've lost that year. And what I mean by that is, if you come back, you repeat your 8th grade year, and then you come back to Rhinebeck as a 9th grader when you should be a 10th grader, your clock already started. Your eligibility will expire your junior year, and you will not be able to play your senior year. Okay? So it's important to know that. So I wouldn't want, if anyone's interested or thinking of that, please call my office so I could help explain that again. It's very important, because we wouldn't want anybody to accidentally not understand their eligibility and the ramifications of that. Transferring can get tricky, so that's why it's important to provide us the information as soon as you have it. The only way a 5th year or an extra year of athletic eligibility is permitted, it's an extensive process that has to be appealed through Section 1, also through New York State at times, is if there was a situation where your son and daughter unfortunately was not able to continue their educational school year. So God forbid your son or daughter had cancer, and she was battling cancer her freshman year, and she was not able to participate in a school setting or school environment whatsoever. If she wanted to continue athletics, we would fight for her, and we would put an appeal in for extended eligibility, because there has been a clear disruption in the academic calendar and academic career of that individual. So those are extreme and unfortunate situations where we would look at that or advocate for that. It isn't because someone went to a private school and then came back and they wanted to reclassify. So our philosophy. We want students to learn life experiences and lessons of life through interscholastic athletics. That's the mantra of New York State Public High School Athletic Association. That is the philosophy of Section 1. That's the philosophy of Rhinebeck here. So what are those lessons? What are we learning? We're learning commitment, cooperation, responsibility, time management, as I said earlier, sportsmanship, citizenship. So when we think about sportsmanship and citizenship, a lot of people are quick to think of how your kids are with each other. Well, we want to have them understand how to behave with officials, maybe an official that they don't think is a very good official. We want them to interact with coaches who maybe at home isn't being encouraged or isn't saying they're doing a good job. We want them to still understand that we need to understand that relationship and manage that relationship. And here's the big one. We obviously want everybody to be successful. We want people to win championships. We want to be winners, right? Well, winning doesn't always mean by your record and through plaques and through championships. It's by positive participation. It's by growth, okay? But it's also, growth is also through disappointment. So it's okay to fail. And we're seeing a generation go through where, you hear helicopter parents or bulldozer parents. Well, we know that's a real thing, and that does have a ripple effect into athletics, where part of athletics is it's a safe environment to fail. It's a safe environment to not excel, and that's okay. It's how do we learn, or what lessons do we learn? How do we maybe shift gears or change or do something different to be successful elsewhere or in another arena? okay? Sometimes we'll get the conversation, and we have an extremely supportive community, and my 13 years here has been a blessing. I've had maybe 5 conversations in the 13 years where, I pay your salary, I pay taxes, my kid's on your team. Well, interscholastic athletics is a privilege. It's not the right. So when you enter and register your son or daughter for school, it doesn't automatically hand you a jersey and a bat or a stick. So it's important to understand that we want to operate our program to meet a standard, and we want our participants to manage themselves and to operate in those standards and keep those expectations in place. All right, we have the expectation of our coaches, our fans, our parents, and our kids, and we've been successful with it. So, but it is a shift from interscholastic to recreation. Many of you have donated hours upon hours of coaching your sons and daughters. This is a big break in ritual, or not ritual, in practice that you'll go through if you're now no longer coaching your son or daughter. Okay, so what we ask is to still support the coaches that we have here, and understand that there's going to be an element of discomfort as you release them to us and to our program. We have a philosophy of modified where if your son or daughter is on our modified athletic team, there will be equal playing time. Okay, and equal playing time is guaranteed as long as the expectations of the team are being met. Okay, so those expectations could be attendance, could be citizenship, could be a wide range of things, but they will receive equal playing time. That is also a reason why we do have a program where we do make cuts. And I'll speak more about cuts later in the program. But it's the basic level of our interscholastic program. It's first time your child has an opportunity to wear our uniform, to get on our buses, to travel to games, to represent us with the uniform on, to interact with other schools for Rye-Neck. Okay, so it's a real exciting time, and it's a real proudful moment for our kids to be doing this. Okay, some programs, for example, basketball and volleyball, will carry 18 kids on a roster. Okay, so if you're a basketball and a volleyball person, you're saying, wait a minute, there's only 5 people on the court, there's only 6 people on the court in volleyball. Well, we do a program where we'll rotate 3 groups of 6, so we're able to include a couple more kids as they funnel up to the JV and the varsity ranks. So there are programs where if we do make cuts, your son or daughter is free to go to another sport in that season that did not make cuts. And it may be something they've never tried before. And I cannot tell you the number of success stories that we've had where Janie's been playing basketball her whole life because her dad loved basketball and he coached her in basketball and she played basketball and she did CYO and AAU and this and that. And she just really wasn't that good in basketball. She doesn't make the basketball team, but then she went to try track because she's never run track before. And during the winter season, there's an opportunity for her to run track. So she was automatically included in a program that didn't make cuts. She now has a wider network of kids because she's been on the same team and been to the same tournaments with the same kids for the last 12 years. So now she meets a new set of kids. She has a different role. She meets a different type of coach who may teach science, who makes a connection with. And then she blossoms and she becomes an outstanding performer for our varsity track team in the winter months. So that's why we open that up to the teams that don't make cuts. The students are able to freely join those teams. And each season we have at least one offering that does not make cuts for both the boys and girls side. So now as you move up through the ladder of interscholastic athletics, obviously their playing time is not guaranteed when you get to the junior varsity and the varsity level. There's roles for everybody if they make the team, right? So you have some people that don't play much, they're on the bench, and you have people that play all the time. As you get to the varsity level, your goals are shifting as to what we're trying to do. So you go from inclusion at the modified level, the point of everybody playing, and that really funnels as we get to the varsity level. And that makes sense if anybody here has participated in athletics at the varsity level or even beyond. So we still are teaching skills. We're still part of the interscholastic program. We're still representing our school, but there's just a little bit of a shift with regard to playing times and things of that nature. We do have, at times, maybe not enough kids for a JV team to run, okay? But I mean operate. It happens, this year it happened a lot at a lot of other schools but here, and I was happy we didn't make any cuts this year because of COVID. We wanted to reintroduce kids into the athletic program, but a lot of schools in the area were dropping their JVs. If we drop a JV, say boys soccer in the fall, there's not enough kids to fill a JV boys soccer roster, that doesn't mean the JV boys soccer team will no longer be in existence. We plan every year to run every program that we have not only budgeted for, that we hire for, that we plan for, and we schedule for. So we hope that it doesn't happen, and it happens seldomly, but I just want to make sure people are aware that if it doesn't run, I don't want panic buttons to go off that, oh my God, we're not going to have a program anymore. That's not the case. We plan to run every team every year at every level, okay? All of our coaches must go through rigorous training. So they're all first aid, CPR, AED certified, and concussion trained. We are fortunate that our athletic trainer, Joe Dranoff, he's a certified American Red Cross first aid and CPR instructor. So he does all of our in-house research for our coaching staff. They must have a teach account with New York State Education Department, which is like their tracking device. So if something happens, we get notified. DASA, which is Dignity of All Students Act, violence prevention, child abuse, and obviously they need to be fingerprinted and cleared through New York State Education Department. And then their ongoing PD, professional development, is through NFHS, which is the National Federations of High School Coaching Courses that they do online. And if we have opportunities to have anything in person, we certainly support that as well, as different coaches associations sometimes put on different events. Family ID, that's our online platform where you register your sons and daughters. A valid physical is required. Well, let me back up. Sorry, that first bullet point. This is important. Family ID does not open until 30 days prior to the start of the season. That's a New York State requirement because they will not accept clearances that are farther than 30 days because they want to make sure it's an up-to-date health history for that student athlete to participate in sports. Another important note that I don't have on here, COVID. If your son or daughter comes down with COVID or has come down with COVID, you need to indicate that on your family ID registration because we need to make sure that your son and daughter has seen a doctor prior to participation in any of our interscholastic athletic program. If your son or daughter had COVID in December and it's already in our system and you have a physical in June, well, he or she has seen a doctor and she'd be able to be cleared. It won't be a problem. But if your son or daughter does come down with COVID after that physical, you need to make us aware and we need to have that individual looked at by a doctor. We can either use our school doctor or your private doctor to make sure they're cleared. What is a valid physical? A valid physical is a physical that doesn't expire prior to the month of the start of your season. So you're in here online watching from home. Your son or daughter is going to play modified sports. September 13th is our first day of modified. So if your physical expires September 1 or later, that physical is valid and good to go for the year, for that season, okay? If your physical expires on August 31st, that's not a valid physical. You need to have a new physical on file in order for them to participate in our fall season. Physicals are good for a calendar year, okay? Concussion information is in the family ID. There's links in there for you to complete. Incoming 7th, 9th, and 11th graders will be doing it, and Joe Dranoff, our athletic trainer, as I said before, he tracks that in-house and gives reminders and things of that nature. So I hope everybody is either familiar with Family ID, but if not, it's a very simple platform, and if you have any questions, they have outstanding customer service. We're one little phone call, and it could easily be rectified. SportsU is a communication platform that we've used for our teams. We post the codes on our athletic website. It's a way of coaches communicating to parents and also kids, giving them updates. You can put the schedule on there, game schedule, practice schedule, a change in schedule. It allows push notifications so you're able to see what's going on, okay? So in that Family ID also are pledges. They're online sign-offs, right? There's a lot of signing things online these days. I implore you to please read what you're signing. Don't be so quick to sign off without reading it, not only with you reading it, but also read it with your son or daughter. So everyone's aware of the code of conduct and the pledge. And I don't mean this to be a gotcha or we have harsh rules, because we don't. But we do have expectations that tie back into the lessons we learned through interscholastic athletics of commitment and respect and citizenship. So please read that carefully before you electronically sign it. It's uncomfortable when I have to say to a parent when they're arguing about something, and I say, well, no, you agreed to this, and it's timestamped, and here's your signature on it. So please do due diligence and read our codes of conduct. There's a parent partnership pledge in there, as well as a student-athlete code of conduct and a participation agreement, attendance agreement. So as you probably guessed, concerns and questions, the number one issue that we come across, it's usually buried in the middle of the onion, is playing time. So we don't have playing time to be a topic that parents are to discuss with coaches. That's where we go to the self-advocacy. We want student athletes to have the conversation with coaches. Because a lot of times parents don't realize what's happening at practice that may be contributing to that playing time. So we do ask that, and this is in the partnership pledges, the 24-hour rule. That's not only with practices, but also games. And really, because games can be a very emotional time. So we don't want anybody to have their emotions get the better of them and maybe say something or act in a way towards an official or a coach or even another athlete in a way that we may regret. So we're certainly open to having conversations, and we'll have those conversations, but please respect the 24-hour rule and go through the proper channels and the proper protocols for that. Topics, again, that we do not discuss with the parent is playing time, the game or team strategy, or captaincy and awards. Note that modified doesn't have season-long captains. Sometimes we'll rotate, or sometimes we won't have captains at all. We typically don't have them at the JV or modified level. You know, they might be a captain for the day or someone who's maybe earned it through practice for that week, things of that nature. When we talk about attendance at practice, which we require, if you're participating in multiple activities and your son or daughter is part of our team, that has to be, we ask that that's the priority. Obviously, you're in the age right now of religious observation. That is all perfectly legitimate excuses. Where you have to go to CCD or have temple, we understand that as they prepare for their bar mitzvah, or confirmations. Those are totally legitimate, and we ask for you to give those schedules or any other religious observations that you may observe that require your son or daughter to participate during the week and miss a practice or even a game. We just ask you to communicate that as far in advance. We ask that you schedule dentists, doctors, tutors, certainly any type of outside athletic event that has to be scheduled around the modified schedule. We understand that. We've had some people say, you know what, I'll wait till JV and varsity to try to join the team because I want to stay involved in this program. We get it. And it does not put you behind anybody else in the future for making a JV or varsity team. But we do ask that it is the priority, and we do hold a pretty hard line on that one. I do want to show you two videos. There's been a bit of a shift with involvement in youth sports. The first one is, let's see, which one I'll show first. The first one is a minute and a half. It's Coach Ariema from UConn, and he talks about parents as he's going through the program. And again, we're not talking, you know, our basketball team's not UConn girls basketball, but it's interesting his insights and the conversation he has with the reporter as he's recruiting people. That'll be the next one.
This is more than a mirror. This is a complete gym hiding in plain sight. Introducing.
Kids inherently want to be good teammates. I really believe that with all my heart. Most kids, when they're on a team, I guarantee you go watch any 7-year-olds or 8-year-olds, they want to be good teammates. You watch them play. When they get a little bit older and they start having a little more success, and then the parents get involved, they become not so great teammates because they're told a lot of times that you're not going to get anywhere unless you shine, unless you know. So now, back in the day, we had AAU tournaments. You had to win X number of games to qualify for the national championship. And you played on your team, and you had to live in your state or whatever, your area to play. And you played, and if you lost, you went home, and it was devastating. And that's Rebecca and Jamel Elliott and Jen Rosati and Nikisha Sales, you know, going, you know, Megan Patterson, as far back as then. Well, that's changed. Now when kids go to these tournaments, they're not going there to win games. They're going there so that the coach can see them exhibit their skills. So this idea of winning for the weekend doesn't exist anymore. So it's not their fault. That's just the way it is. And I try when we go recruiting to identify those kids who still have a tremendous interest in being great teammates. We're not always successful. Believe me, I've had my share of guys that were really hard to coach for that reason. And you can trace it back generally to the parents. Without question, you can trace it back to the parents.
one's a little longer, but I don't think it needs any. It's very interesting. A bunch of great kids in this one.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
If you asked me what Coach Wooden's pyramid of success was, I couldn't name you one of them.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
All right, you guys ready?
I prefer that my parents, if I play bad, don't say anything. And if I play well, it doesn't really matter if they compliment me on how I play. I just I don't know, I prefer my parents to, not talk as much.
I can hear them like cheering me on, and I'm like thinking in my head, just shut it, I'm trying to focus.
My mom yells in Spanish, like, go, go, go.
My mom usually says, use the backboard. You should use the backboard. I get angry because it annoys me. I'm kind of embarrassed.
She tells me to get in the position that my coach told me not to get in. I'm like, well, no. And then she's like, get in your position. I'm like, no.
I get a little tense when I have a certain score to get, and she's like, you gotta get that whatever score. And I'm like, ah. I don't like it when they try to push me even more, even though I'm trying really, really hard.
Coming from the coach's mouth is kind of better, I feel like, because your parents are there to support you and your coach is there to help you, you know?
You just start screaming, Valentina, run faster, make a basket. But I just start going slower every time when she says that.
The other people are like, wow, that mom was like really wanting her kid to win.
In my inside, you can't see it, but I'm inside saying, be quiet, be quiet, be quiet. Sometimes I just look into space.
I try to listen to them and then do what they say to so they don't start yelling again. I don't really want them to give me that much advice because then I might forget it all. Sometimes I get nervous when they yell and nobody else is yelling.
Sometimes it can embarrass me, like a lot.
Wait. What's going on? We're just trying to do this, but you want us to try harder?
Well, I am.
I'm not going into a game not trying my hardest. That'd be messed up.
Yeah, it's a lot of pressure.
Sometimes when they try to get the ball in basketball, you kind of think in your head that they're kind of gonna push you and you're gonna fall and hurt yourself.
They don't need to always be telling me what to do every minute of the game. They kind of just gotta let me play.
I love when you say it really nice. I got it, Mom.
I'd like to look back and I'd like to see you smile or give me a thumbs up.
Mom, I wish you would be a little bit quieter. Say you play good and you couldn't get them next time.
When they smile and say good job.
Mom and Dad,
Thank you for
loving me. I love
Be my supporter.
when I'm upset, my mom and dad cheer me up.
Sometimes I forget about all the work that they do for me.
Be my biggest fan.
We need a lot of love. I want you to know
I need big hugs.
I love the snacks that you bring me. It makes me happy when you always encourage me.
Thank you, Mom and Dad.
Please just be my mom and dad. Yep, that's it.
So I like to show that video as just as a reminder and realize that you want the best for your children, so do we. So our coaches and everybody that operates in our program, our teachers, we're all on the same page, and we just got to really sometimes just manage how we observe it and how we watch it and how we help each other go through it and do what's best for our sons and daughters. So we do open gyms and interest meetings. Open gyms are available to all students 7th to 12th grade when they're open to 7th to 12th graders. What we'll do sometimes is have a high school open gym or a middle school open gym, and that's held by the coaching staff of a program. It's mostly attended by upperclassmen because they tend to have a little bit more time sometimes or freedom or flexibility to travel after hours. Like I said, they're often later at night or early mornings. They are not required, and they do not factor into making a team. So open gyms, modified students, they don't typically go to open gyms. This is when you get into the varsity or JV level. Interest meetings, they certainly can attend interest meetings. I have the interest meeting, a universal one for all of the modified athletes prior to each season. So as I said, during the half day on September 1st, I'll be having it for the 13th or the first day of tryouts. Okay, so it's very important to know that open gyms and interest meetings do not factor whatsoever in deciding who's on a team or where you stand, all right? But you do have to attend the tryout, obviously. Yeah, Rosa. Typically leading up into a season would be interest meetings, and open gyms could take place. This is more, again, at the junior varsity and varsity level. They could happen anytime during the year, and it's sometimes an opportunity for kids who maybe aren't playing a sport. If they play basketball, for example, and there might be an open gym in October for the athletes to play. Students who are in season cannot attend an open gym and physically participate because we do not want to risk them getting injured in an open gym while they're in season for another sport. So I talked about tryouts and cuts. Obviously, we do have cuts. It's it's a necessary evil in some people's minds. It helps us run efficient programming. It keeps our facilities suitable for our numbers, and also has a safe environment. And athletes who get cut may join another program, as I spoke of earlier, and we've seen a lot of successes with that. It's actually saved some programs here as well. Volleyball was extremely popular a couple of years back, and field hockey wasn't. And I was like, uh-oh, we're a little concerned about our field hockey numbers at the modified level, and obviously your numbers at the modified levels are good indicators of what you have at the junior varsity and varsity level coming down the pike. And we had 42 girls come out for volleyball, and then we had 56 boys coming out for modified boys soccer. We only keep 18 volleyball kids, and we keep 22 soccer kids. So obviously there's big attrition there. And what happened with the volleyball, thankfully, is the majority of girls who did not make the volleyball team, they were welcomed by the coach and other girls, and they went out on a limb and they tried for field hockey. And most of those girls end up being lifelong field hockey members, and not only did they help save that program, but now it's flourishing where we went from having a varsity and a modified to now having modified JV, varsity, over X amount of years. So it works, all right? So it does help other programs. It helps kids be in environments that they didn't think they'd once be in. And those boys soccer players, they went and they ended up developing into, 7 of them developed into extremely strong cross-country runners that made outstanding, no pun intended, strides in the Section 1 championships. When we do make cuts, we post it for the varsity and JV, we post it out at the athletic center. And when we make cuts to the modified level, we do post a list outside the guidance office for the student athletes to see. Yep. Correct. It's just a list of students who are retained on the roster's names that'll be posted on that list. Yes. Yep. Their name. Yes.
So how would they make the other team if they were attended that way? Are they staggered tryouts? So like if your kid gets cut in soccer,
Yep.
they want to try something out, or are they just tryouts staggered?
No, they happen concurrently, but they're welcome to join any. They don't have to try out again. So if you don't make the volleyball team, next day you could freely join the field hockey team because we haven't made cuts. And if you want a day or two to think about it, it's no problem. And when you talk about eligibility, you need to accrue X amount of practices until you can play in a game. Those tryouts that you had for the other sport count towards that other sport. So you're not behind the 8 ball at all on that. Okay? And we spoke about the commitment to Rhinebeck teams taking priority over non-RN events. That's why we say that we make sure we notify and let you know that weekends we don't have modified athletics. So if you still want to participate in club or travel or things of that nature, those are perfect opportunities to do over the weekends. Okay? Athletic placement process. This is when a student athlete has the opportunity to play up. So this is all handled in-house in the athletic department, and it's managed from the head coach of the program and myself, where it's not an open gate. Different schools have different programs, have different philosophies on this. And other schools, they actually use it inappropriately, which is for filling JV rosters. So I remember I spoke earlier about not having enough kids for a JV team. Well, I'll get the comment, why don't you just bring up some of the 8th graders and 7th graders and you have a team? Well, that's illegal because now we're putting kids who don't deserve to be at that level competitively potentially in harm's way in a dangerous situation, and I'm not going to spend any time in court, and it's not appropriate placement for those individuals. So if you have a son or daughter and you say, hey, they're a standout, they're an all-star, believe me, Rhinebeck's small. We know who they are at certain ages. We handle that in-house. So it's not the process where a parent contacts our office and say, I'd like my daughter or son to try out for the JV soccer team. That is all done through our observation of student athletes in our physical education classes, in the modified season the year before, how they are in the school. If there's somebody who is getting detentions or suspended or not handing in academics, we're not going to look at that individual and say, well, this is someone who's ready to play at the JV level now and have a greater time commitment in sports. So we handle that. So we'll reach out to your office. My office will reach out to you if we're going to look to give your son or daughter an opportunity to try out. There is a multi-stage and step approach to this, where I speak to the parent first, speak to the coach first to get reasoning as to why. All right, Coach Spedafino, you think Melissa is a very good softball player. How do you know that? What do you know? It can't be, well, Dad tells me she's great. I've seen her in my open gyms. I've had her at my clinic. I've seen her at Modified last year. Physical education class, she does a great job. Then I'm like, okay, that sounds like you've done your homework. Parent permission form is signed by you. Return to my office. You get medical clearance because they have to have a physical maturation level for their age to be considered for a higher level. Again, to keep them safe and not to put them in harm's way. That's off of a Tanner rating and growth charts. So pubic development and bone structure and strength. You can do that with your own doctor, or you'll do it with our school doctor, and we can arrange that. And then there's a physical fitness test that they have to hit benchmarks in order to be allowed to try out. And then the tryout is the last step, which is the fifth step. And if they make the team, then they make the team. But we've had cases where a student's gone through all 5 steps, and you put them in that population, and they actually didn't have the skill set to thrive or succeed at the JV level or the varsity level as an 8th grader or a 7th grader, and then they're retained back to the modified, okay? And here are some numbers if you want to spend time to look at what the numbers are, to the metrics that we use, and these are dictated by New York State Education Department. Equipment uniforms, we issue them. We expect them to be returned. If they are lost, we do send invoices home, but it is rare that happens. Everyone returns them. That's all we need to say about that. There are some things that are personal items. For example, we don't issue baseball mitts or softball mitts, but if there's ever a situation where an athlete, for whatever maybe financial reason, is unable to provide a certain piece of equipment, we certainly can have a conversation and figure out a way to accommodate that. Transportation. Part of the athletic program is going to games and coming home from games together as a team. You win together, you lose together, you travel together, you learn what that whole process is like. We do understand there are times there are unique situations. God forbid a wake you have to attend, or you have to get back earlier to school because there's an award ceremony. You fill out a transportation release form that's on our website. We're redesigning our website this summer, so we'll make sure we look for opportunities for user friendliness to have these forms readily and easily available for you. But please, these are not to be used for Johnny's got to get home quick because he's got to study for a test tomorrow. That's part of what we learn with the life lessons of time management and being a student athlete. Okay, it's not for Johnny's got to go to CYO practice and you're playing your game in Hastings and a CYO team is in Dobbs Ferry, so can I just take him over there? This is a collective effort of being part of a one interscholastic athletic program, being part of what a Rhinebeck Panther is, and traveling together and being part of a team. It really takes away the me out of the team. Okay, so it's very important that we continue to do that. And we're paying for the buses, so we want to make sure we have people riding them. I explained the athletic director's honor roll. But back to that point, the bottom bullet point. We want our athletes, all students, to use extra help. And if they're going to do that and it's going to make them late to a practice, that's totally understandable. Just please, that student will talk to the coach or give the coach a heads up on it so they know where they are. Merged sports, we only have one merged sport at the modified level. It's our ice hockey program. But what a merged sport is, I get asked the question every now and again. It's when two or more schools come together to create a team. And the reason would be for insufficient number of participants, financial constraints, or facility needs. That doesn't mean that if we have an interest in a sport, we have one individual or two individuals who want to play a sport, that all of a sudden we're going to find 10 or 12 different schools to merge to create a team. But it is part of interscholastic athletics, so it's important just to touch upon it. They are approved by the Board of Education, and they're a year-to-year basis. So the ones we are involved in right now are boys and girls swimming with Rye and Blindbrook High Schools, girls ice hockey, and also boys ice hockey with Harrison, Blindbrook, and Portchester. This isn't really involved. For modified, this doesn't really it doesn't pertain to you, but I just wanted to give you an overview of what I meant. As I said earlier, the section New York State there is divided up into 11 different sections. As you progress out of section 1, if you win your tournaments at the varsity level, then you go into the state level and you play the different sections to see who state championships are. Anybody in the room who's interested and has the time, we're asked to always do this PSA. If you'd like to be an official, you contact me. I can certainly give you information how to become a certified official, because there are shortages of officials. We're seeing a trend of aging out and young blood not coming in and getting certified to become officials for interscholastic athletics. We went through this with the video. Just to encourage a student athlete to work hard, understand the various roles on a team, model supportive behavior, be supportive of your child's coach at home. One thing I've learned in interscholastic athletics is the game of telephone is very deadly and dangerous. So your son and daughter may come home and tell you what happened at practice, and then when we have the conversations, really isn't what happened at practice. And the coaches and myself are happy to help the individual understand that and clarify things with the parent. But it's important to respect the coach and team's work environment. Coaches put a lot of time in, as you do as well, with all the things you're involved in, and particularly your children. But please be mindful of that. And again, this is where the separation comes from, that rec mentality to interscholastic athletics, where you don't just freely enter a dugout or enter a bench, things of that nature. And empower your child to approach his or her coach, to engage in the discussion. Okay, our coaches aren't big bad wolves. They're there because they want to help kids. They want kids to grow. They want them to get better. There's nothing more gratifying for a coach than seeing an athlete that comes into their program, into practice day 1, and leaves the program in 10 weeks, a transformed kid, not only from a physical ability standpoint, which may not even happen, but maybe from a social standpoint and from a mental health standpoint. And of course, manage their time. All right, try not to have them overcommitted, because you can't be in 2 places at once, and eventually those 2 trains on that one track will collide. So we don't want kids to be in that situation, because, as we talked about cuts, I don't want to have a conversation where your son or daughter tried out for the team, they made the team, but now you're missing Tuesday practice to try to go to a club practice or something like that, when we had 18 kids that we didn't retain the team who would have been more than happy to have the opportunity to stay on that team and participate fully. So please help us manage their time. Booster Club's an outstanding organization that supports not only our athletic program, but also theater. So if you're interested in getting involved, please contact Allison Heaton at the Booster Club, RN Booster Club at Rhinebeck.org. Homecoming is slated for October 15th, 16th. They're always looking for volunteers, and it's a great way to get involved and really learn about the program beyond just tonight, and learn about the different sport programs and teams and cultures and things of that nature. And our athletic department website, which is going to be revamped when the district is redoing our website. These things will be modified and changed, but things that you can find on there now, obviously team game schedules, sports U info, forms that I spoke about, and contact information. One thing, again, about Rhinebeck being small, you send me an email or you call my office, it is extremely rare you don't hear from me within 24 hours, either via email or through a phone call. So please, if you have a question or something that seems really troubling to you, I ask you to call me or get in contact with my office so I can help clarify or find out more information, rather than go to Facebook Moms or some other source of information that may or may not be accurate. And I'm happy to be a resource for you. I want to be a resource for you. I want to help your sons and daughters, and I want everybody to have as positive experience as possible going through our athletic program. And I thank you in advance for not only your support for the coaches and the teams, but being here tonight, watching it from home, and really partnering in this process. And it's a lot of fun. So we're going to keep going down that path, and with COVID hopefully behind us, get back to some normalcy. And there's no greater smiles than the ones on our athletes on the fields. So thank you for coming tonight. I'll certainly hang around if anybody has any questions. And that's it. Have a great night. Steve Bavaro, thank you very much for helping live stream, and Dr. L for hanging out. Thank you. These are the And that's it. Want to do it again? That's just a practice? Yeah, thank you very much. We'll see you all soon. I have to reschedule.
Thanks,
some
Steve.
random.
Thank you.